But Democrat Chris Coons, an ally of the president, says it's time for him to reconsider sending in U.S. troops, something Mr. Biden has repeatedly said he won't do.
I think the history of the 21st century turns on how fiercely we defend freedom in Ukraine, and that Putin will only stop when we stop him.
We've heard from several Republican lawmakers who have been calling on Joe Biden to send US troops to Ukraine to specifically engage in a direct military conflict with Russian troops, Russia being a nuclear power in the world. And now we're hearing from Democrats like Chris Coons, a close ally of Joe Biden's, considering he's a senator from Delaware, basically calling for the same thing, while completely minimizing the impact of engaging in a direct military conflict with Russia. Now, he had shared some more details on his thoughts in this regard during a recent talk he had with the University of Michigan. Let's take a quick look at that and then we'll discuss.
There almost certainly will be an incident where Putin goes too far, either within Ukraine by using chemical weapons or just over the border by claiming an accident in which a cruise missile strikes an arms depot where Americans are unloading Stinger missiles from a C-17 about to go across the border. We are in a very dangerous moment where it is important that on a bipartisan and measured way, we in Congress and the administration come to a common position about when we are willing to go the next step and to send not just arms, but troops to the aid and defense of Ukraine. If the answer is never, then we are inviting another level of escalation and brutality by Putin.
There's a lot of preemptive war language there if you listen closely, because I didn't know that Senator Coons was some sort of fortune teller, but he's already laid out what he predicts Russia is gonna do to escalate the war in Ukraine. And then he goes on to say, well, if we're not prepared to send troops on the ground, well, this is it's a bad idea. It could lead to even more danger. So why don't we preempt more danger by just automatically escalating the war ourselves, which will then lead to more danger because we're engaged with a nuclear power here, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's amazing to me how they breathlessly make these cases without thinking about the ramifications.
Yeah. So first of all, let me double down on what Anna's saying. That had no logic at all. That was a Trumpian type of point. Russia is a really dangerous situation. They could hit our troops, so-called by accident, by firing cruise missile. So that's why we should bring our troops right into the middle of the war where Russia can hit them much easier.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. You're not even trying to make sense. Here, let me translate for you guys. I have a lot of defense contractors as my donors, and they would love this war. They're gonna make billions, maybe even trillions from it, and they're gonna stuff my pockets full of cash. And that way I can get more chairmanships and I can have more power. And all the people who die in a potential nuclear war, I couldn't give it a rat's ass about, because I'm a neoconservative Democrat and I love more wars. Second thing that doesn't make any sense. Next time somebody tells you, no, you have to support Democrat, okay? It doesn't matter what their positions are, you just have to support them. And not just during an election and not just during a general election, but during primaries, incumbent Democrats are amazing. Just generally speaking, you have to always constantly tell everybody how great corporate Democrats are, etc. Well, does he look great to you guys? This lunatic is trying to start World War III. Why would I support that? Why would anyone in their right mind support a nut job like this? By the way, be a reporter. Be a reporter. I know they love to ask questions like, oh, this seems to disagree with Joe Biden. You guys want to have a catfight? No, the correct question is, so you bring troops in the middle of Russia. They obviously fire in the middle of a war with Russia. They obviously fire on them. We obviously fire on the Russians. Are you not risking nuclear war? And the answer is, you're definitely risking nuclear war.
What's interesting is he was asked on Face the Nation to elaborate further on what he said during that talk at the University of Michigan, right? Because that talk was not moderated by a reporter. But to be fair, reporters have been kind of egging on the Biden administration to escalate the war by engaging in a direct military conflict with Russian troops. But putting that aside for a second, when he was asked on Face the Nation over the weekend to clarify, to essentially really confirm that that's what his stance is, he ran away from that question, which means that he understands in the very least, the lack of popularity for that option, how Americans are not on board for that. But when he thinks people aren't watching, when he's giving a talk at the University of Michigan, that's when the gloves come off, and that's when he starts advocating, when he starts saying the quiet parts out loud as a Democratic lawmaker. Yeah. And the thing that stands out is the fact that he's a Democratic lawmaker, because Democrats would have you believe that they're so different from Republicans. In some ways, they are. Certainly when it comes to their rhetoric on culture war narratives, they're different. But when it comes to certain substantive issues like US foreign policy, like economic policy, domestically speaking, there's a lot of similarity there. And it's incredibly frustrating, to your point, Cenk, to hear over and over again that, listen, you have two options here. You either go with the dangerous Republican or you stick to the benevolent Democrat. But fact of the matter is, a lot of these Democrats, because of money in politics, because of the fact that they're personally invested in individual stocks, look a lot like Republicans when it comes to substantive and incredibly critical policy issues.
So look, this is the first time that I would actually consider voting for a Republican in 20 years. Because Chris Coons is just as corrupt as any Republican when it comes to economic issues. So he's one of the 8 senators, Democratic senators, that voted against $15 minimum wage. He hates every progressive policy and will fight it harder than any Republican would. Oh well, we need Democrats in office for what? For what? And now he wants to start World War III? Look, I know that whoever Republicans run, they're almost always monsters. And these days they're fascists who say, we don't really need any stinking democracy, right? So you're always stuck with the lesser of two now horrific evils, right? But this is unacceptable. And yes, I was referring to the CBS interview where the big follow-up was, but this seems to be against Biden's position. Are you guys gonna fight against one another? Who cares about the horse race? Concentrate.
They love the cat fight. Look, everything just boils down to a cat fight for them, and that's it.
Yeah, now Biden is relevant for reasons I'm gonna explain in a second. But as a big time reporter that probably gets paid millions of dollars by CBS, it didn't occur to ask the follow-up question, but Senator Coons, aren't you risking the annihilation of the human race? Because you can say, hey, it's a small risk, it's a 1% risk, a 0.1% risk. In reality, it's much, much larger. You're now going to go kill Russian troops and egg on Putin, a madman, to push the button? No, I got it at 10% minimum that we will all be dead if we do that. Yes, they have more nukes than even we do. And yes, if they launch, we launch. Yes, if we both launch, the entire planet is dead. Yet that idiot says, let's mine the meteor because my defense contractor buddies are gonna put more money in my pocket. Do you wanna ask him about his donors? No, of course not. You're a mainstream media reporter. You would never do something that's honest. Okay, last thing though, it's about Biden. That is Biden's #1 ally in the Senate. Why is Biden's #1 ally in the Senate egging for war?
Yeah, it's concerning.
So, look, it's one thing if Coons, who is one of the most conservative Democrats in Congress, on his own is like, man, I would love another war, this time a nuclear war. Man, God, we'd make so much money before we all died. Mining the meteor is a reference to Don't Look Up. Well, let's make all the money before everybody's dead. Okay, now, the worst possibility is, no, he talked to Biden and Biden told him to create fake pressure so he can go into war. If that's the case,
yeah,
that is a recipe for unbelievable disaster, both in the real world in terms of war and the danger that it puts us in, but also electorally. Listen to what I just said. I would consider voting for a Republican over Chris Coons. If that is Joe Biden's position, Trump is gonna win in a cakewalk. It's gonna be a landslide. These morons don't have another gear other than corruption. And that's where we are today.
And I mean, put that all in the context of how easily military aid gets approved for Ukraine, while Americans get told over and over again that we don't have the resources to help you with all these economic issues that you're struggling with. There was really no fight to ensure that the child tax credit was made permanent. Chris Coons, in the middle of that discussion he had with the University of Michigan had mentioned that, well, at least Biden is offering military aid to the tune of $800 million. It is interesting to see where the priorities lie. I don't have a problem with helping Ukraine out, but I do have a problem with us being nickeled and dimed, being told over and over again that we don't have the resources, when clearly, when it comes to the priorities of these lawmakers, they certainly do have the resources, and it gets approved with virtually no debate.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.